everybody, this is Nate with another Backcountry beer review. I'm here on Sierra Negra, which is just north of the Jemez Mountains in northern New Mexico. It doesn't really belong to any mountain range, it's kind of just its own feature. It's a P1K, which means it's got 1,000 feet of vertical prominence, which usually when you're talking prominence, the higher the prominence, the better the view. And I'll say this peak is a pretty incredible view. It was difficult to get to in the sense that it's an off-trail journey. That means no trail, the access is a little murky. I followed a forest road that just at one point disappeared and I had to get out of my car and walk the rest of the way, which I was expecting, but it's a cool hike, cool view, really enjoy it. The beer I'm reviewing today is by Burial Beer Company in Asheville, North Carolina, and it's their Anecdotes of Wild Exaggeration American Wheat Ale. So Burial, like I said, out of Asheville. They also have locations in Raleigh and Charlotte. I think they're just tap rooms. I don't think they do any brewing there, but I'm familiar with them because I used to live in Raleigh, as some of you may know, and their tap room opened up, I think, a year, maybe 2 years before I moved. And it became one of my favorite places. I'd never heard of them before they opened up, but I really found that their beer is good. And I've noticed that they've been getting a lot of national, even international recognition, and they really deserve it. I don't think I've ever had a bad beer from them, and I would say that some of those white whale beers, you know, those one-off beers that you're just like, wow, I wish I could get my hands on this again. But you know that it'll only exist in your memory. At least one of those was made by Burial, and for that, I have to commend them. So Burial, I would say, is probably much more known for their pastry stouts and IPAs, West Coast and East Coast. And so I actually have reviewed them before, and I did a West Coast style IPA, their Surf Wax. Can't remember what episode it was. I just remember it was a very windy day, and this was in that period where my mic setup was not really working properly, and frankly, it's sort of an unwatchable video, but if you care to, you can go back and give it a watch. And I thought, because I wanted to review something, I didn't want to just review a stout or an IPA, especially since I've been reviewing a lot of those lately. I decided to pick up this American Wheat Ale. So let me read the back of the can real quick. It's Burial. They always have great art for one, and they always have very interesting beer descriptions. So from the gaps in our ritualistic rationale, through the tiny perforations in your mind, something to consider, another thing to hold dear, mashed with Appalachian wheat from Riverbend malt, hopped beautifully with hand-selected mosaic and cashmere. Pretty interesting beer. Let's open it up, give it a taste. Time for a sip. I tell you right off the bat, this is not what I would think of when I think of American wheat. When I was drinking this beer, I was definitely expecting more, obviously not like Blue Moon, but more of that flavor profile that, that American wheat, kind of like riffing off Belgian wheat or Hefeweizens. This is something completely different. First of all, the flavor I'm getting is just intensely tropical. It is like, I don't think I've ever, not that I've thought about this too much, but I don't think I've ever had anything that tasted so much like papaya that wasn't papaya. This reminds me of the Harmon Lane beer I had a while back where it was like really, really weirdly tasted like melon. This really, really weirdly tastes like papaya. I'm also getting a lot of guava. I'm getting a little bit of citrusness that I assume is coming from the hops. I get a little hint of like banana, maybe. As the beer profile kind of evolves, I think I'm getting this more like, I hesitate to say nutty, maybe more creamy. That kind of like, what registers in my brain is creamy, almost like coconut milk. It's that creaminess, and I'm thinking coconut milk probably because I'm thinking tropical. And then the finish, that's where I'm getting a lot of these hop notes really coming forward a little bit more. I'm getting a little bit of, I'm getting some bitterness for sure. Not too much, but ever so slightly there. I'm getting definitely some pininess, and definitely some like pepperiness, that kind of like typical hop pepperiness. And as I sit with it more and more, I think the initial like super strong papaya and guava notes, they kind of take a step back a little bit on, the fourth or fifth sip. And that really, the hops kind of come forward a little bit more. You start to get in the foreground at the beginning and at the end a little bit more of that pine, a little bit more of that spice. If I was blindfolded and I drank this beer, I would think it was probably an American pale ale. And I would probably think that they were doing something like trying to make a hazy American Pale Ale. The fact that this is an American wheat, really, I think it's kind of like this interesting blend of like a wheat ale and American Pale Ale that I don't think I've really had before. It's certainly a new thing for me, and I think it tastes great. I think they really hit it out of the park here. So cheers, and have a backcountry beer for me.